Want to call to order the July 11th, 2011 meeting of the East Ascension Consolidated Gravity District. Roll call. Madam Secretary, please note that all commissioners are present. Would everyone please stand for the invocation given by Mr. Valentine and remain standing for the Pledge of Allegiance.
Heavenly Father, we come to you tonight, Lord, with heavy hearts as we would like to remember the Harvey Kling family. Miss Velda has passed, and we certainly, Lord, ask blessings upon their family. Father, we ask to bless this meeting tonight, Lord. May each one of us have wisdom, Lord, and grant us the knowledge to be able to deal with the people's business. We ask all these things in your Son's holy name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, George. Public comment period. Anybody wishing to speak on an agenda item, please sign in with the secretary and you'll be given time to speak when that item comes up. Agenda item number 4, the acceptance of the minutes of the June 6, 2011 meeting. We have a motion by Mr. Bell.
Second.
Second by Mr. Cullen. Any discussion? Any opposition? Motion carries. Under the chairman's report, right now we'd like to let anybody that doesn't know that Ascension Parish is now a member of the coastal zone, and we appreciate all the hard work that went in to get that done. And right now we'll have a presentation on the Louisiana Coastal Zone boundary projects and by Mr. Terry Howey, Mr. Ed Britton, and then after those guys, Ms. Linda Pace will come up and give us a little presentation also from their office. And they're from the Office of Department of Natural Resources. Go ahead, Terry.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. It's a pleasure to be here to welcome Ascension Parish as the 20th parish in the coastal zone. I'm here tonight with Dr. Ed Britton, who's going to co-present and kibitz me on my slides, and we'll then present a short discussion after ours on what it means to be in the coastal zone and how to establish a local coastal program, which will be presented by Ms. Linda Pace. On behalf of Secretary Angel and Assistant Secretary Louis Buot, we do appreciate your allowing us to come here, and we appreciate all the hard work that's gone into this over the past 2 years on all of our parts, and the great help that we have received from Mr. Bill Rue and his staff in finalizing a lot of this and getting this to a point where we can now begin to actively integrate Ascension Parish into our coastal zone. This all actually began as a result of action of Ascension Parish delegation in the legislature about 2 years ago. There was a bill introduced to put the parish in the legislation. There was concern from various people for various reasons, and it ended up being a study resolution that was passed by the Senate. It originated in the Senate Concurrent Resolution number 60. That resolution requested that the Coastal Protection and Restoration Authority prepare a study on the adequacy of the inland boundary of the coastal zone from all the way from the Texas border to the Mississippi border and report back to the legislature. That project got started in 2010 in earnest. It took some time to get enough funding together to get the contractors we needed for support. And through late 2009 and 2010, we were gathering data. And this first slide, the second slide, shows the features of the provisions of the Senate Concurrent Resolution. We were requested to do a science-based resolution and to present recommendations based on science, but also that would reflect socioeconomic activity that does occur in the coastal zone. We were asked not to go out and collect new data, but to use data sets that had been developed over the past 30 years. It's been 30 years since the coastal zone was originally defined in legislation in 1978, and it has not been looked at really seriously since that time. The next slide is what I call our doomsday slide. This is a composite slide of not what could happen across the whole coastal zone in an inundation event, but the worst case scenarios for various locales across the coast that has been compiled by the National Oceanographic and Atmospheric Administration that demonstrates that a huge area of South Louisiana is subject to inundation through natural forces such as hurricanes, flooding, and so forth, and that we are, many of us, at a great risk in an area that is much more widespread than simply the current area of the coastal zone. The next slide shows what the situation would be if our recommendations were actually adopted. The ultimate recommendation of our report suggested that it was appropriate to add approximately 2,000 square miles to the overall coastal zone. When looking at certain GIS data from the USGS, the U.S. Geological Survey, estimates of land loss in South Louisiana show that just about that same amount of area is proposed to be lost, and has been if the rate of the land loss continues without major and significant restoration projects, and even factoring in the rate of success that we've been having to date, the coastal zone in the year 2050, at the current rate of land loss, would be actually smaller than the land area of the coastal zone in the year 1950. So in a span of 100 years, we would be losing about the same amount that our report is now recommending that we would add to the coastal zone. Next slide. The purpose of this slide, and there was great concern as this project was ongoing, that it not become a project that would lead to a lot more regulation and a lot more bureaucracy. And Secretary Angel, from the get-go, said that he wanted this to maximize our effectiveness, to be able to help the state use what it had now, the regulations and the laws that it had now in the coastal program, to help implement the master plan. Portions of Ascension Parish are in the master plan study area, so it's fully appropriate that this would be applicable to Ascension Parish also, and that the regulatory intrusiveness onto the public at large for getting permits that they need to conduct their business not be increased. Next slide. The ultimate master plan objective was to promote a sustainable coast, and there are within the coastal zone management policies provisions that have been around that can help to implement that. And for a sustainable coast, we mean not only the sustainable protection features and to sustain our land loss data so that it does not increase, but also that we have sustainable economic development, that our fisheries are sustainable, and that we have sustainability in the way of life generally in South Louisiana. Next slide. The coastal zone is extremely important in Louisiana. It is the population center of the state. There are more people in the coastal areas of Louisiana, not necessarily right in the coastal zone, but in South Louisiana along the coast than in the rest of the state. Our economic activity is tremendously important. This slide shows some of the features, primarily oil and gas, because DNR is primarily an oil and gas regulating department. And the petrochemical industry, the oil and gas development industry, transportation industry is extremely important and needs to work hand in hand with coastal zone management in order to promote the sustainable development and the sustainable way of life that we have here in protecting our natural resources within the coastal zone. This is not to say that there are not other economic factors that are certainly dependent on the coast, and we all, I think, know what they are, and which is why we don't dwell on those in this particular slide, but want to point out that that jobs and development and the economy is critical to our state, and we need to bear that in mind when we are managing the coastal zone. Of course, there is tremendous recreational fishing, commercial fishing, and ecotourism that is also extremely important to the state and has been of growing importance over the past decades of coastal zone management. Next slide. One of the things that Secretary Angel was adamant about when he gave us guidance towards starting off this study was that he wanted us to do the management, be able to do the management that was necessary, but to not do unnecessary management. He wanted us to take a tiered approach whereby we established a boundary where we had to have permitting where permitting was warranted, but avoid permitting when that was unnecessary, and where our management objectives could be attained by other means than requiring a permit for every particular little project that was occurring. For this reason, we established an area that was going to be designated as the coastal use permit area that might be added to the coastal zone, and also what we developed the concept of an intergovernmental coordination area, which would actually not be part of the coastal zone. It would be a defined area that was defined by the study, and that would be an area where we could look at individual projects of large scope. For example, we would be looking at, we would imagine projects that are major water projects that would be occurring in areas that are outside the coastal zone, but using the existing authorities that we have either through federal laws or through state laws in the State Coastal Zone Management Act to influence the outcomes of those kinds of projects. And we also we're defining then the rest of our study area as simply the watershed management area, which would be an area where in extremely rare circumstances, if, for example, there was a broad-scale watershed management plan, we might direct funds so that we could participate and influence certain outcomes to that. That might be something like things that are suggested for utilization of the Sabine River for other purposes than it now is, where our interest might be to have the water in our marshes and estuaries, and that competing interests such as utilizing the huge amounts of water for the city of Houston, we might not want to look favorably upon if that was going to be adversely affecting Louisiana natural resources. Next slide. Ultimately, we studied 9 different factors, including elevation, vegetation, soils, other kinds of locations that were also scientifically defined, such as whether an area was in the coastal zone boundary or whether it was in the water pollution, the state water coastal non-point pollution program, which is also based on a scientific analysis. Assigned a point system to an area to about 100,000 grid sections along the southern part of Louisiana, and took the scores where the lower scores were areas that there was no coastal influence, an area of moderate coastal influence, which is represented by the amber-colored zones in this map, and then the bluish-greenish colored squares, which is the southern part of the state. And the bluish areas are the areas where there is a high affinity for coastal processes as defined by those 9 criteria that we selected to look at. And this was a methodology developed by Dr. John Day and his associates at LSU, is using ecological theory that's been used around the world for various kinds of classification of ecological systems. And we're very confident in the science behind what we have defined, what we use to define our areas of high, medium, and low affinities for the coast. Thus, The areas in blue are the areas that we wanted to incorporate into the new coastal zone, which would be the CUP, that stands for Coastal Use Permit Area, and the areas outside that are in orange would be areas that were in the intergovernmental coordination area that I mentioned previously, and then the areas above, more north of that, would be areas that generally we would not be interested in from a coastal zone management day-to-day processes, but on very rare occasions might be interested if there were extremely large projects. So this then represents the actual boundary line across the state. You can see that it adds a bit of coastal zone to Calcasieu Parish, takes in another corner of Cameron Parish, stays the same through Vermilion Parish, and then in the area of the lower Atchafalaya Basin, it broadens. It includes more area of Iberia Parish, a little bit more area of St. Martin Parish in the Atchafalaya Basin, and then in the central portion of the state it recommends significant increases to the size of the coastal zone in Terrebonne Parish, Lafourche Parish, and Assumption Parish. Continuing eastward, then the report recommends including Ascension Parish into the coastal zone, a portion of the southern portion of the east bank of Ascension Parish, and then in the Florida parishes, we actually recommended taking certain areas out of the coastal zone that are in Livingston and Tangipahoa Parish, and then leaving St. Tammany Parish the way it is. The next slide shows the relationship of our newly proposed coastal zone to that of the existing coastal zones of Texas and Mississippi. And in those areas, I put this slide in actually just to show that with what we're proposing, it is going to be very reasonable in terms of what our sister states with coastal zone management programs are actually managing under their coastal zone management programs. Our boundaries will be very close on both the east in Mississippi and the west in Texas to what those states are managing. Next slide. This slide shows a comparison of what happens in the coastal use permit area and what I've called what I've referred to earlier a couple of times, the IGC area. The basic difference and the main thing that is pertinent is that in the coastal use permit area, a permit is required for activities that could affect coastal waters. In the IGC area, there is the primary mechanism for influencing projects is a coordination mechanism between government agencies. So in most cases, there would be no direct interaction between our office and any individual permit applicant outside of the coastal use permit area, which becomes the new coastal zone. Additionally, there are funding opportunities, there are priority opportunities for master plan activities in the coastal use permit area, which are not present in the intergovernmental coordination area. Next slide. Sure. So I've mentioned a lot of things that we've already that were here. We can refer back to this, and we're going to move towards the Ascension Parish map now, and then we will discuss the actual boundary of Ascension Parish, and then explain a little bit about where we're going to be going from this point onward. And for that part, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. Britton, who is a geographer.
Thank you, Dr. Howie. Here's, as you can see, is the Ascension Parish map. Our study showed us approximately what part of the parish should be in based on the science, and then we deferred to the local experts who know your area better than we do to help determine the exact delineation of the line. And so, as you can see, it starts on the east bank of the river down here on the parish line, just below Sorrento, comes north to I-10, follows the interstate, goes down toward Barman and around this oil and gas field, comes back up and hits the sorry. It's the New River Canal, comes over west to the Marvinboro Pump Station, follows north more or less along the levee, the Severio Canal, and crosses Highway 22, gets up around Laurel Ridge area, and follows, I believe, where a levee alignment or something like that, and then on north towards Lake Martin, Lake Villar, Summerfield area, and then on up to Port Vincent, and goes east to cross the Amite River there, and leaves. And then at that point, it comes south along the Amite River and goes around the eastern and southeastern edge of the parish, and comes back down and rejoins the St. James Parish boundary line. All of St. James Parish to the south is in the coastal zone, and east of the river, lower Livingston Parish is in. Okay. So therefore, that leaves us next steps after, as of May 17th, 2011, effective with the acceptance by the Coastal Protection Restoration Authority of the scientific study. At that point, Ascension Parish, this portion of it is in the coastal zone. It becomes the 20th coastal parish in Louisiana. The legislature would still have to give their blessing to the rest of the study, the rest of the proposed coastal zone boundary, and they would look at that in 2012, and the full implementation with full permitting and all that in Ascension probably wouldn't take place until January 2013.
2012.
I'm sorry, you're right. 2012 for Ascension and 2013 for the rest of the boundary study.
Right.
Any questions at this point before I turn it over to the rest of our people about what it means to have a local coastal
Any questions
program?
for him? No, I guess we appreciate that presentation, and yeah, Mr. Shake Snyder.
Yeah, I just want to try to make clear, basically the boundary is following right now our existing levees and drainage systems out there, and so basically everything is outside of the improvements that we're trying to make in protection areas that we're having.
That's yes, sir. Generally, it tends to follow those drainage areas, and generally a water body is included in as a general rule, and generally development, like say an interstate highway, is excluded from the
Right.
coastal zone.
Okay.
Basically, it encompasses most of our major drainage projects within those boundaries. That's all. Thank
All
you,
right.
sir.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, Ed. Now we have Miss Linda Pace. Do we need to get some of our guys to help
I
you with
think
the?
so. I think it's ready to be loaded. My name is Linda Pace, and I'm the manager of the local coastal management section at Office of Coastal Management. And John Truxillo is also here with me today, and John works with the parishes every day, on an everyday basis. I don't know if we're going to get it. Oh, there it is. Okay. John was going to give the presentation today, but he came down with a cold, so I'll be giving it today. The outline of the presentation is, we'll discuss the enabling legislation for the local program, what is a local program and what it can do, what uses of state concern or local concern are, the steps in developing a local program, and the benefits and the parishes that presently have local programs. The Louisiana Coastal Program is under the State and Local Coastal Resources Management Act of 1978. And the state policy is to protect, develop, and where feasible, restore or enhance the resources of the state's coastal system. And it's administered by the Office of Coastal Management at DNR. And the regulations for the coastal program are located at Title 43, the Louisiana Administrative Code. and it gives parishes the options of developing a local program. And when a parish has a local program, they can then issue permits for uses of local concern. So what is a local program and what can it do? It can manage activities that impact the coastal resources. They can then permit and regulate activities of local concern. Some examples of these activities, I won't go through all of them, but it's privately funded projects, maintenance of uses of local concern, jetties, breakwaters, dredge and fill projects, bulkheads, piers, camps, cattle walks, maintenance dredging, and you don't have Chenier, so that wouldn't affect Ascension. State concern examples are state or federally funded projects. Oil and gas activities are state concern. Activities that affect state lands or water bottoms, and of course all energy facilities. The code for the regulations of the coastal program goes through the steps of developing a local program, for the approval of the program, modification, and periodic review of the programs. The first step in development is to issue a letter of intent. And we did bring a couple of examples today, and they're attached to your handout. And program development is described in the administrative code, and part of that you would have a program document and an ordinance to enforce the local program. And development would include grouping it into geographical areas, habitat types. You would identify resource conflicts, social and economic growth needs, and you would have goals, policies, and objectives. And you would also hold a public hearing as part of the development process. And the content would follow what's in the administrative code, and it also will reflect that the parish is committed to the administration of the program. And for funding, DNR, for an approved program, DNR provides money, and then the parish provides match. For approval, the parish would submit the plan after a public hearing. Then the Secretary of DNR will either approve it or suggest changes. After we approve it, then we submit it to NOAA, and NOAA will also make a public notice. And it will be approved by NOAA as well. Benefits to the parish. A local program provides the parish a mechanism to have like a central hub of information. We have advisory committee meetings. The parish could set up a coastal advisory committee meeting for the parish's citizens. It would provide a forum for you to discuss coastal issues. It would show that the parish is serious about coastal zone management. And it would also show that the parish will regulate the local uses. The uses will be regulated, whether it's by the state or the parish. So if the parish has a local program, then they can be responsible for the local concern uses. For the benefits, DNR is always here. Office of Coastal Management will assist the parish every day if we need to. We're always there to help and assist. We'll give advice, technical advice on permit applications, any type of mitigation assessments that would be required. The parish would enter into a contract with DNR. It's normally done on an annual basis, and that would be the exchange of money and show the parish match. And then DNR also provides quarterly meetings to the parish, and we try to set up pertinent topics for the agenda, and parishes often recommend or suggest topics, and then we also always have an open section for discussion. Benefits of the parish local program. Oftentimes, if just by having a parish local program, you'll find out something that maybe another parish wouldn't find out. So you may have access to funds or know about funds that you might not know about beforehand. There's also Clean Water Act grants, QIPRA projects, Coastal Impact Assistance Program. And This is just a picture of the present coastal zone boundary, and we needed to make a change on this slide. It still shows 19, but 10 of the 20 parishes have local coastal management programs. And if you want to go to this website, this will provide more information to you on the guidance, development, and it shows, gives examples of other parishes that have local programs in their program documents and how their boundaries. So if you have questions, you could contact John Truxillo or me. And that concludes. Do you have any questions?
Any questions? And Ms. Pace?
I got,
Yes, sir, Ms. Parish? Mr. Shake Snyder?
well, how can we go through a process of incorporating this into our management program right now? For we have a system of levees and pumps and things for protection, and yet we want to maintain the natural system that is outside of that. Can we utilize that in our current?
What you'll do is you can develop EMUs, environmental management units, and you can designate certain units as for certain needs. And you will want to incorporate your existing drainage and your existing management plans into the coastal program. So that's recommended.
Okay.
Mr. President?
First of all, I want to thank Linda and her staff and just about everybody at Natural Resources. They've been very, very helpful and through this process, and certainly want to thank Jody Amadei for introducing this legislation and helping push it through with with his colleagues, our legislators, Merton, Eddie. So it all came together. I don't think you will see, as citizens, will see a whole lot of change here. Basically, we've already got our permits section in place. So I think that those things, the plan that we have already, we can incorporate. Basically, over the years, we've spent a lot of money trying to build a drainage system here, and this kind of helps us to, it opens the doors to allow us to be eligible for more money to continually try to protect the rest of this parish. So again, I will just say that this is not going to be, I don't think, as difficult a process as it sometimes sounds like on paper in discussing things with y'all. And I appreciate, again, y'all's willingness to work with us and your cooperative spirit that you've done in the past couple of years. So, and we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Any comments? Thank you, Linda. John, hope you get your voice back there, buddy. We also want to thank Terry and Ed. Thank y'all very much. We appreciate it, and we'll be looking forward to working on this, getting some good out of it.
Thanks, and we look forward to working with you all too in the future.
And we do understand that that this is nothing that happens real quick, but we can get the stuff together and get going on it. We have a great timetable. So nothing else on that. We'll move ahead to agenda item number 6, drainage report. Mr. Rue.
Yes, sir. I'm not gonna, I handed out the report, and because we're pressed for time, I'm not going to go through it, but if you have any specific questions, give me a call, and we'll go in more detail with anything that you have concerns over.
Okay. Any questions for Mr. Rue? Anything on the drainage report? No questions? All right. On agenda item number 7, I will recuse myself from the chair because I have a relative that works for one of the bidders on this project. And with the ethics that I learned at my mom's house and within our family, I have a very large family, so we're very diverse in the industry up and down this river. I'll recuse myself and turn it over to the vice chair, Mr. Dempsey Lambert. Thank you, Dempsey.
Thank you, Mr. Cloyd. Number 7 will be the acceptance of lowest qualified bid for the Henderson Bayou Floodgate project. Mr. Rue.
A total of 13 bids were received Tuesday, June 28th, for the construction of Henderson Bayou Floodgate. Lowest responsive bid was from Cajun Contractors Incorporated of Baton Rouge in the amount of $15,892,000. This project was budgeted for $24 million, and CDM and administration recommend the award of the contract for construction of the floodgate to Cajun Contractors and authorize the parish president to execute all documents.
So moved by
Second.
Commissioner Adrian Thompson, second by Commissioner Shake Snyder. Any discussion?
Yeah, I do want to say something.
Mr. Shake
I
Snyder?
think it's very important to note that this project actually started in around $30 million, getting price and cost in. I think it was maybe more than that. I think through a lot of hard work, the administration, I want to thank Tommy, the administration, and I know Randy was working very hard as the chairman, got it down where it was really manageable, and I know that's something close to your heart, Dempsey, all the time that you spend in it, and I think the probably $15 million we save the people of the parish by doing the extra work you guys are doing. I want everybody to know that what y'all have done. We appreciate that, and that'll enable us to do some more projects now that we've been trying to get done. So it's very important to note that.
Mr. President?
Let me just say, Councilman Shake Snyder, that first time I looked at this project and sat down with CDM, Mr. Cluart and I, in Donaldsonville, it was $54 million. So, you know, we've come a long way from day one. Had we gone with that price, that was with the Cadillac, the bells, the whistles, and everything else that was included, and with the value engineering, I think Mr. Lambert went on one of those, Dempsey and everybody on this board, which you help. We actually got this project down from $54 million to it's probably going to end up costing the grand total of about $21 million when all's said and done, with the engineering and everything else that was included, right-of-ways and buying the property. So again, if you take the first bid sometimes and look at things, if you don't take your time, you'll end up spending a lot more money than you really need to spend. And I think this is going to be a good project. And as Councilman Shake Snyder said, it will enable us to take it another step and do some more improvements in our parish for drainage and utilize the money that was bonded more efficiently. So again, I want to thank Bill, the staff, and all of you guys for being patient with this and getting the job done and being efficient with the taxpayers' money.
Well, appreciate all the comments. Any further discussion? If none, motion passed. We'll go into number 8.
I'll take that chair back.
Get on in there, Mr. Cluart.
I appreciate it, Dempsey.
Thank you.
Thank you. So move along to agenda item number 8, like Dempsey was saying. Capital projects, priorities. Mr. Martinez.
Yes, in conjunction with number 7, we were just talking about, we've put the money we put a pencil to where we at in these projects, and basically we think we'll have enough money to do a couple, at least 2 or 3 more projects. And what I'd like to do tonight is prioritize those projects. And you know, I think that the number 1 priority in my heart, and of course hopefully in yours, is the extension of Laurel Ridge Levee. I think that will protect a lot of people in the area, and certainly will be one of the projects that we've talked about. And if we could do that, and second, you know, we've talked a lot with Shaw about the area around by Man Shack and the Frog Bayou locks. That's something that I think that should be prioritized second in this thing, and actually doing some dredging on Bro Bayou, which is in Ascension, and maybe sitting down and getting with Iberville Parish and see if they want to do some cost sharing. And certainly on the levee Laurel Ridge levee extension, since we're now in the coastal zone, it could be one of the projects that we look at to help us get some funding, and also work with Pontchartrain Levee District. I think the report from Shaheen is going to go to Pontchartrain Levee District next week. So
That will.
once that's done, to maybe sit down with them and look at that. And of course, we have Panama that we've been talking about. We put an application in for a grant. Hopefully we get that grant, about $6 million in Conway, so hopefully we can get some of that done also. So I think if we prioritize, we need to do that first, and then we need to look at what the money's available, go and meet with these different agencies that we talked about, come back to this board with some cost factors, and then we'll take it from there. So tonight I'd just like to maybe prioritize what we need to do. And my suggestion and Bill's suggestion, we've talked it over and looked at it, would be in that order.
I'd like to make a motion that we, recommendation to place extension of Laurel Ridge levee and Frog Bayou floodgate and Broke Bayou dredging as top priority projects of this capital improvement program.
We have a motion.
Second.
Second by motion by Mr. Shakespeare, second by Mr. Valentine. Discussion. Any discussion? Yes, sir, Mr.
Yeah,
Valentine.
let me just say, I think the fact that the homework was done on the first project allows us to be able to spread out the money that we have, as the parish president said, and it's Frog Bayou is certainly a key part. In the second part is District 4 and District 8, as far as relieving a lot of that situation, and will also help people on Ridge Road, and I'm sure in a lot of Mr. Bell's district too. But Laurel Ridge being the primary, we got to protect the east, and that's one thing that's important. So I'm fine with these two priorities for sure.
Well, I just have a short comment. Yeah, go ahead,
Yeah.
Mr. Lambert.
Yeah, I agree with Parish President as far as Laurel Ridge. They've been neglected for a long time over there on the eastern part of the parish, and like the '83 flood that came through where the two basins almost met each other would have been real bad. So it's definitely a priority that needs to be done, and I think the eastern part of the parish
That's right.
needs, they pay the taxes just like the rest, and they've been suffering. So I think it is a good move to go that route first.
Yeah, I just, any other comments? I just have a short comment that basically the chronology of all the projects within the parish and the original FOLET plan that we're carrying through with that based on the original conception of the tax and what the people wanted to do with it in the New River Basin with the Marvin Bro pumping station. And that one of the projects that Henderson Bayou actually coming into play right now does have a benefit versus the 83 of the overrun of that area running across 431 and different areas and getting into the White Cypress Swamp. And I believe what we got working on for the Laurel Ridge levee will relieve that and put those people within a protected area, and also help her on 431 on both sides there when we got the runoff. Mr. President.
Fortunately, we haven't seen during this 4 years a major flood, and of course prior to that we had one at the back at the Bluff area, and they had some major problems. I think that was in 2002, 2003, and prior to that we had several occasions in the early 90s to where the Laurel Ridge levee extension would have been very beneficial. We sandbagged quite a bit back there, and we just have been very, very fortunate here lately. But I can assure you, at some point, it's going to happen again, and we're gonna be happy that we started on these projects and prioritized these projects. So
It's just a matter of time.
it's a matter of time. It's going to happen.
Yeah.
So.
I think within the past couple of years, and the relationships that's been built back and built up with the Corps of Engineers and working with us on our permitting, and also addressing issues that they gave us approval for, and working with the Pontchartrain Levee District on some of these projects, and looking forward on some of the projects that we're still waiting on up in the Bayou Man Shack, to wait for some answers on that to help George and them up there, and Chris and Pat and them. But I think we got a lot of things moving forward, and if we just like I said, the prioritizing is great. I appreciate it. Any other discussion? Any opposition? Motion passes. We'll move along to agenda item number 9, extension of the contract between East Ascension Drainage District Number 1 and LSU for hydraulic and hydrologic modeling assistance. Mr. Roof.
This project was supposed to have been completed May 31st, but because of the flooding in the Mississippi River, the students had to be redirected to help assist on some evaluations of that event. And for that reason, everything was stalled for us completing our project. We're asking for an extension of the contract between LSU and East Ascension Drainage District until September 30th, 2011.
Motion. A motion by Mr. Thompson. Second by Mr. Bell. Any discussion? No money involved, right, Bill?
No more money, nothing, just an extension of
Thank
time.
you. Want to make that clear. Any discussion? Motion passes. We'll move along to agenda item number 10. Mr. Lambert.
Motion to adjourn, Mr. Chairman.
We have a motion by Todd Lambert to adjourn, second by Mr. Bell. Thank you very much. We are adjourned.